Okay. Hi, Megha. How are you doing?
Hello, Rajiv. I'm doing wonderful in this era of disruptions and finding new ways of doing the thing. So I'm also disrupting myself and with you on talking about book learning by, the ride of a lifetime. So very, very glad to be part of this, Rajiv.
Absolutely. A lovely book and lovely to have you. So, how was it in your organization? Have you guys announced to kind of get 30%, 40% back to office, or are you still locked in home for next one quarter?
So interestingly, last quarter we did set till March we're going to be working from home, but very recently globally we have declared that none of our offices globally will go at least by H1 this year, and then we'll see which countries to open up, which countries to obviously start partially, and we see how it goes. But as of now, at least till H1 we are going to work from home.
So are you itching to run to office, or are you comfortably settled in this new style?
Oh, not at all. Trust me, I'm a big fan of work from home, not just now, but even in my last organization, I'm like really spoiled by the choices of
Mhm.
work from home. And I used to even do earlier 3 days work, 2 days work from home, 3 days going to office, because I believe, think about it. If we all are right now working in a technology organization, the most of our clients happens to be in US or UK or any part of
Mm,
the country, right?
mm,
What we're doing from India is the delivery center, or serving our clients who are really based somewhere else.
mm.
So if the client can trust you to deliver a technology from a different country, why could you
Mm.
not trust your own employees to deliver from anywhere? And that's the
Lovely.
fundamental belief that I have.
It works for you also because you are in that industry. Had you been in retail or a manufacturing anywhere, this argument would not have worked for you. But lucky that you are there.
Yeah, see, I believe that every industry has some jobs who can partially work from home. And I'm not saying that it's a permanent work from home because, we all
Mm,
are human beings. It's a fundamental nature for us to be connected, whether it's socially, whether it's physically. But having said that, there has to be a different way of doing things, which means
mm,
whether it's for the organization, whether it's about, and I'm going to bring an element of CSR, which is
mm.
about, think about it, that it's not the government responsibility to think about pollution or
Yeah.
electricity or water. I think that ownership has to now transfer to us as a people and an individual.
Agreed. Agreed.
And even if you start 1 day or 2 day work from
Mm,
home for your organization in a week,
mm.
that itself is a huge savior for the planet, and I
Oh
feel we
yeah.
have to start thinking like that.
Yeah, and I am the best man to talk about this, Megha, because I live in Bangalore, which is nothing but IT corridor or IT city, whatever you want to call it. And now that I am regularly commuting to office as an entrepreneur, because all the IT offices are shut and people are inside, the roads are far more comfortable and nice for people like us to drive. I'm just hoping it stays like this because एक बार जनता वहाँ बाहर आएगी तो going to go back to the same chaos that Bangalore is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I travel currently with Fiserv. I travel between Gurgaon and Noida.
Hmm.
So my daily commute time is not less than 3 hours, either ways, wherever I go.
My goodness, crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
Superb, superb. So, welcome to the show. Before we get started on the book of the day, let me have the honor of introducing you to the audience.
Thank
Good
you.
morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you are going to be in while listening to Guest of the Day. All of you are part of Leaders in Library Season 1, and we had 33 guests coming and talking on 22 powerful books. Season 2, we have 40 guests talking on 40 exclusive powerful books. We have yet another guest of the day, Ms. Megha Gupta, HR Director, Fiserv. Now, her profile is very interesting. Before I talk about her experience, let me go in the other order. She's a regular, she's a TED speaker, she's a mentor, she is one of the HR 40 under 40 awardees, which is one of the prestigious awards for HR leaders in India. She's also part of Are You in the List of People Matters, which is again a great recognition, Megha. Congratulations on that. She speaks on multiple topics and favorite areas that she talks on are emotional quotient, hiring, employee engagement, HR transformation, powerful topics. And you see her regularly on LinkedIn. Those of you are connected with her, you will see her there. If not, please get connected with her. 15 plus years of experience in the space of HR. And I think one of the fast track young HR leaders that I'm interacting with. So, congratulations on that, Megha. Beyond all this, the reason why I'm loving to have her here is keep all these accolades aside. She's also a book lover. So, I'm happy to have you, Megha. Lovely.
Thank you. I think, as I said at the start, pleasure is all mine to interact with each one of you. And I'm sure we're going to have a lovely conversation for next 40, 45 minutes.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that because the book that you picked up is also a very interesting book. And I do not know how many of them have read the book. Those who haven't should definitely pick this book and read it. So let's get started. Before we delve into six, seven topics that the author beautifully talks in the book, and interestingly, the author is also an ex-CEO of the organization, has held senior positions, so it comes from the horse's mouth, right? Tell me, Megha, how early did books happen in your life? How young were you? A school-going girl or a teenager or college goer?
Yeah. So interestingly, first of all, I never participated in any of the debate or anything in my school time or
Mhm.
college time. I was always very scared of interacting with people, at least on an intellectual topic, I have to call out.
Are
I
you
was
kidding
always in.
me?
Yes, I was. I was always into arts and dance, and for all those star reasons, I've always been on stage. Never been a,
You are in a wrong profession of HR. Go on, just teasing you.
So happened to me honestly in my first job. So I was with Tata's, and I was into a field of learning that point in
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
And then I moved to Delhi after my marriage, and that's when I met this person who also is my mentor and a very very great good friend. If I have to call out today. And he introduced me to books, and he's a thorough OD professional, and I was just a beginner. I have to call out some 3-4 years of experience in HR, and he really introduced me to some subject matters of OD transformation,
Mm.
and couple of those topics. And initially it was a struggle for me. I'll be very honest about it, but once I picked up and I realized the value of learning through them, because
Lovely.
what you learn in your MBA institutes, I think,
Mm.
it's not enough for you to sustain in a corporate life. And I
Mm.
think, starting my journey from really getting into the behavioral science of HR to really going to the different models of HR through books
Mm.
was really the beginning of the journey. And this is somewhere around 12 years ago, if I'm talking about. And
Mhm.
then from there, I think it was never the end, because then I moved to, more softer sides of reading the books, right from the mindset book to
Mm.
multiple other books of Jugaad, which is the creative and the science aspect of it, to obviously, learning from others, how they gone through the journey and what can we learn from them. So I
True.
think the journey is endless, I believe. I still do a combination of books plus articles plus blogs, because being a millennial, I think we have a short attention span. I would agree to that. So yeah, it's definitely a combination, I would say.
Beautiful, beautiful. Uh, did it start with what? The so-called Tinkles and Enid Blytons, or are they very old books for you and you kind of started off with Jeffrey Archer's and kind of authors? How did that journey start before you
So
moved
I
into management books?
Yeah. So I think it started with a hardcore professional book like Talent Management, like a Dave Ulrich
My
model.
goodness, what a heavy book to start off.
Yeah, to be honest, I was into that professional, right? I was
Lovely.
doing an OD role, I was doing a learning and development role. So it had to start from that. Like I remember I had to introduce, how will we do competency assessment and identify top talent at senior level. Now I was like a 4-year, experienced person. I had no idea how we're going to do. So he just gifted me a book, and I said, why don't you go and read this and come back to me? And honestly, I just read it in a week, and I came back and I had that full presentation ready. I said, hey, we will do this. And of course, it had a couple of models from the book as
Yeah.
well. But I saw that value, once I did it, and then the journey couldn't stop at all.
Beautiful, beautiful. What a man, a father of modern HR management, Dave Ulrich's books are beautiful. As you rightly said, you can just pick up those templates and apply it in any organization. It just sits.
Oh, absolutely. Even if I go back to that 12-year-old book I read, and everybody knows this now in HR fraternity, the 9 box model that he proposed many
Yeah,
years ago. Wherever I go, whether it's Gartner, Microsoft, everybody still uses it. There is no replacement of it, to be honest.
absolutely, absolutely. Powerful model. Lovely. So as you started with those books, Dave Ulrich, a very heavy book. I mean, honestly, first time a guest is talking about Dave Ulrich as the first book to start, people would talk about fictions and other stuff. Very interesting, which means you're a core HR person. You eat, live, breathe HR, I guess. Tell me, how did books play a significant role in your own growth? as a leader, and you are a fast track leader who have grown in your life. As somebody sees your profile, it's visible immediately, Megha. So I'm assuming books played a significant role. How did it happen?
Yeah. See, I think, being a professional that we are in today, a lot of time, and, one of my very close friend from MBA, she happened to be in HR as a subject matter expert, but chose a technical field of being an HR SAP consultant. And
Mm-hmm.
she keeps telling me that, oh my God, in what is the profession that I've chosen? Because I always have to, learn so much. I always have to go through certifications. So there's no end to learning. And I kept, reminding her, do you think it's the other side for me? Because if I don't reinvent myself every single day, I will be non-existent in the HR fraternity.
True.
HR has grown so much from the day I joined from campus to today, what we do in HR. I
Mm-hmm.
still remember when I joined from campus, my only matter was, oh, why don't I learn HRIS, systems? Why don't I do
Mm-hmm.
performance management? Because that was all HR that point in time.
True. True.
To today, when somebody gives me a job of managing a performance management, I said, listen, somebody else can manage it because it's too operational and fundamentals, unless until you have to reinvent the wheel of performance
Correct.
management. And I think books really give you those insights, whether it's a theoretical model for you, how you apply, to even it gives you insight about whether, how people are thinking, what is the research around it that has happened across the globe. And then, of course, your ability to transform and see whether it's going to apply in the organization,
Mm.
some part of it, most
Mm.
part of it, or, just replicate out of it. So I think it's an easy win without going to a Harvard or a Columbia to still find some research papers and able to apply,
Good one.
I would
Good.
say.
Good one. Good one. Actually, an easy and an economical option that one can pick up, right? Good one. Good one. That's a nice perspective of how books can actually help. Yeah. So many books, I'm assuming you would have read over time. And among all this, what made you pick this one, Megha, when we connected and I invited you for this event? Why
Yeah.
this? The ride of a lifetime by Robert Eager.
So while I'll say I have a kid now, but I believe for some things have never grown. And one of them, I still remember my childhood days. I was crazy about cartoons. I was crazy about Mickey Mouse. I was crazy about Tom and Jerry. And now my daughter, being 3 years, watches Tom and Jerry. It just goes back into my memory lane of my
Give me a high
childhood.
five from there for that.
So, and by the way, I used to read these comic books of Chacha Chaudhary. So maybe that was my actual introduction to books. I'm
Ah,
thinking now. But I think Walt Disney and Robert Ayer, about the Walt Disney. When I read this book, and I read it only because it was from the CEO of Walt Disney. The only thing was going back to my childhood. I always loved cartoons, so I just wanted to read this book because of that reason. But when I read this book, oh my God, the way Robert has described his journey from, how he started to how he became the CEO of ABC Corporation, from his journey to becoming the CEO of Walt Disney. I think in so many places it connects to me as a person who I am
mhm,
personally. And
mhm.
second, I believe that there are so many fundamental aspects as a leadership to learn from him, I
Right,
believe.
right, true.
So I think those are my couple of key takeaways, that why I love this book. And when I literally started this book, I got so intrigued that within 3 days I just finished it.
When did you finish reading the book?
So this book is not very old, by the way. This book is fairly new. It only got published in 2019. So I read it last year.
Fantastic, super. I don't know if now that you are a Tom and Jerry fan and you're a Mickey Mouse and cartoon character in Disney World, uh, it's very nice for you. I don't know if you have read the other book called Be Our Guest. There's a very powerful book called Be Our Guest by the Disney Institute, and Disney Institute is world famous for the leadership intervention they design for organizations. You should sometime pick
Mm,
up that book on Amazon and read it. It's beautiful. It talks about how can you look at customer from a very, very different angle. They
mm,
call a customer a customer. A customer is called a guest. An employee is called a performer, right? And what you do in between a customer and employer is an opportunity for performance. It's a
interesting.
beautiful, beautiful paradigm of how can you look at business from a customer-centric view. You should pick up the book and read it. You'll love it, Megha.
So looks like that's my next week agenda now.
Yeah, I got the book next to me. I'll send you a pic of this on WhatsApp. Pick it up and read it.
Absolutely.
Right. Lovely, lovely. So let's talk about a couple of things that Robert is talking in this book, right? I'm going to go with the first one. Very powerful. know what you don't know and trust in what you know. I think it's a cliche statement. All of us know that, but I think Robert beautifully articulates this in this book. How do you interpret this from what you read Robert talking about this, and why is it so important for HR leaders or probably young leaders?
Yeah. See, this is the time, and, just going to the book, not sure if some of you would have read it while you hear it out, but this is the journey that, Robert really talks about, he taking up a very important and a critical leadership role in the ABC
Mm,
Corporation. While he had no experience managing that kind of an industry slash the business unit that, he was taking
yeah.
over at the ABC. Now, but at the same time, how he approached the entire piece was very differently. What other leadership will do is to get his hands dirty, to
Mm,
first even understand, what is he getting into, what's the business expectation, how does the business even run.
mm,
I think, those are some of the fundamentals that he really get into to understand, how am I going to do this, which
mm,
means asking the right questions to people,
right.
that he needs to ask, which means don't assume I know things. If you're making a presentation as my directs, I still needs to understand what's really happening in the business. The second piece, it's about really saying that, okay, I don't know, but I really understand and appreciate that I don't know, and I'm being vocal about it. But that doesn't mean that,
Mm,
I'm going to behave in a manner that really makes you feel that, oh my God, I'm your boss, so do what I say. But rather,
right.
I'll get, into the weed of things, understand with you, walk with you through the journey to obviously able to understand. Now, if you connect it to any HR role,
Mm,
and I'm going back, when I read this in my own journey, from my movement to learning to an HR partner role was tough. I was
mm,
finding a job, and, I had never done an HR partner role, in spite of the fact that there was no HR partner role at that point of time. There were very handful of organizations doing
mm,
an HR partnering role. And I really was keen and I wanted to move out because I did
mm.
a lot of learnings for 6, 7 years. And I thought that this is a good experience to actually do something else now.
Makes sense.
And, obviously things happened. It was a difficult journey because I had to read myself a lot to, to be able to cross that journey without having a hands-on experience. So first I did myself was, read a lot online, went through a lot of research papers through Gartner, through the CLC, which is the Corporate Leadership
Correct.
Board, and couple of places to even understand what is an HR business partner role does, how
Mm,
do you do that, really made it live and breathe throughout my everyday before even getting into that role.
right.
And then when you get into it, it's just on you. People hire you for that job, but they expect you to know everything at the end of the day. But you
Correct.
have no experience in that role, in spite of the fact you would be 7 8 experience in years of experience in HR.
Mm,
And I think, even I approached it in the way that, oh, I don't know, that means I need to build relationship with my peers, because when you're an
mm.
outsider and being taken
Yeah.
a role, people also start to think, oh, this person doesn't know, why is this person even in that role?
Correct.
And that's when you have to, be like, okay, fine, I don't know, but I'm ready to invest in myself, I'm ready
Mm,
to learn. But at the same time, it has to be fast. You cannot forever say that, oh, I'm learning. You
mm,
have to learn fast, you have to move through that journey fast, and really move into the fact that, how do I learn and, be able to still comprehend the fact that, okay, I'm at the leadership role, but
mm,
still, that doesn't mean that I'll stop myself from asking the right questions. And I
correct.
think this very well applies to everything that we do today. And everything that happens at a leadership level, at a very very important thing is, being very very subtle, not let the ego come in your way to say, oh, why are people behaving the way they are behaving?
True. True.
Does my team knows better than me? I think those are some of the ego issues, keep aside, but yet move on, and, be very very humble to where you are and learn in the process that you go through.
Right. I think what you said makes a lot of sense, and now I'm able to relate. When you said that this book connected a lot to your journey, because in your profile you've also said that you always ask questions to your employees to get things and drive them for business, right? Which means for you, asking questions and understanding people and the environment is a fundamental tool for success,
Oh, absolutely.
which
I
is what
think,
Robert did.
yeah, this is what Robert did. And I'll give you a simple example. See, the only thing that gave me success in my any new role that I have started, and any organization as well,
Mm,
I never shied away from asking questions, whether I'm in a leadership meeting, whether I'm in a one-on-one setting, whether I'm in a group setting. And
Mm.
I believe, sometimes doing that just positions you in an aspect of, oh, she's trying to understand the business.
Yeah.
She brings a valid point of view. Sometimes, we assume that things are basic, but,
Mm.
sometimes it gets missed the more higher you get.
True.
And it's also about, when you ask those questions, that also become a reflection of who you are as a person, and that's how people start
Uh,
to meet you. And I
right.
think that's a very important aspect. The more you grow in the leadership role, never be afraid of asking the right questions, even if you know that these things have been thought through. Bring that again on the table to see that, oh, are we on the right page? Do we understand the same language? And have we thought through every single dimension that we have to do? The another aspect that I want to bring here, that Robert also calls out, is, see, when you don't know things, the
Mm.
team behind you, you can fake it once, but you cannot fake
Yeah.
it twice.
True. True.
So when you are with people, never fake that, oh, I know XYZ, while you don't know. Because the reality is, the more you fake, people do get to know. They might
Mm.
not say it on your face, but
Mm.
you definitely lose credibility around this. So
Mm.
it's very interesting to, openly talk about it. Say, hey, I don't know, can you teach me? And I'll give you a simple example. Very recently, we are starting to do a lot of analytics, and there is an analytics team does. So we as an HR have reached out to that team and saying, hey, can you teach us Power BI? Because to be
Mm.
honest, we have been doing dashboards over in Excel,
Mm.
and we are quite amazed with the Power BI tool that you're doing. So I would, I as a director have myself gone through the training, because I feel that, wow, it's a new way of doing HR. Now,
Yeah.
no more Excels for any dashboard on attrition or anything. Why don't I use a Power BI? And it's
Mm.
not an investment for an organization, because you already
Correct.
have it.
Correct. 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 Absolutely. I think you know what. As you're talking, our friend Amit Malik comes in my head. He had a very powerful quote that he made a day back. He said, "Honestly, accepting a mistake is better than faking perfection." Quite relevant to what we are talking today.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I may falter, but I'm open to learn from the fall and pick up from people around and help me do that. The more you position yourself that way, people see you as grounded. People see you as humble. Uh, you make yourself vulnerable to them, right? And what more would people want to appreciate you? Yeah, very powerful. Very powerful. Lovely. That takes me to the next one. It says one of the big lessons from the book is he says good things can happen. For a moment, it sounds very philosophical, a little spiritual as well. Help us understand this from a leadership angle.
So I would say that, see, a lot of time organizations, set themselves to say, oh, I want to achieve XYZ from a growth standpoint. And, what happens is, the person who's really making it happen, if that person decides to move on, or, the growth doesn't happen, we start to predict to say, oh, it's because of X person, or, oh, it does not happen because, if this person leaves, the world is going to fall. And
Mm,
I feel, as a leadership aspect, and one thing I want to call out very, very openly, and it may not go well with a lot of people, but nothing in the organization is not replaceable today. And I'm
true.
going to call it out. No matter, even in the Robert's journey, Michael, who had done a double digit growth in Disney, and he was one of the instrumental person in giving a lot of great ideas, whether it's related to the theme parks, how can they do a simple change of minutely increasing the ticket prices but getting the huge revenue out of it.
Mm,
So he
mm,
has done wonderful things for Walt Disney. But at the same time, when he was going through a rough patch in the organization, and he was obviously voted out by the board of directors slash shareholders, it felt like the Disney is going to collapse. But the
mm,
reality, that is when the reinvention of the wheel had happened. Now, whether it was Robert to find that role as a CEO, to finding a new journey for Walt Disney as well,
mm,
which means
mm.
after that they have grown leaps and bounds to what they were to what they are today. And I feel every organization and leadership has to fundamentally understand that what's that point of saturation that they have arrived, whether it's at a
Right.
personal or a position, whether it's the revenue, and then how to come back to say, what's my transformational journey from here? And I'm going to use that
Mm,
word transformation, because if you see even Disney journey, it was not a organic growth. They did
yeah.
not grew because of the fact they said, oh, I have to be best in the animation, so let me start the journey. They
True.
outrightly went ahead and bought Pixar, which was a big thing in the industry,
Mm,
right? And that's what I'm talking about, an outstanding way of thinking, to say, hey, I know where I want to go, but I don't think so I have that kind of a patience to really grow till then. So
mm,
why don't I use a very, very different method of, even if I'm going to take a loss a little bit right now or a huge
mm.
investment, but I know in next 5 years is going to reap the benefits that I want to do. And I
Right.
think that's the mindset that we all need to get into, to say, what is the saturation point, whether it's about the individual, while the individual might have done great for the organization,
Mm,
but is
mm.
that individual really take you to the next transformation journey, and really understand and apprehend that, especially at a leadership levels.
True, true. I think I like the point of saturation point, right? Because uh, the book Good to Great, Jim Collins beautifully talks about a runway, and he said there's a point inflection where you create breakthrough performances. It applies to an organization, it applies as much on an individual. Now, at
Right.
that point of inflection, if Megha or Rajiv or anybody else does not display a breakthrough and just stays there, stagnancy happens, and that's the first indication that you are on your route to an exit door. And this is
Absolutely.
this is so important, right, for young leaders, and you're making absolute sense here, Megha, because the young leaders are far more in that kind of a susceptible environment than I was when I started off my career many years back. I got 21 years of work now behind me, so it was not as tough it was earlier as it is now. So for them, it's all the more important to keep relooking at themselves and understand that good things will happen. Organization will move on. It's not that but you need to just do something differently to stay there. Very powerful one, yeah. Very very
Absolutely.
powerful.
See, again, I want to take an example. You don't become a CEO because you're a best in sales. You
True.
become a CEO because you have done sales, you have done marketing, you have done operations. That is when you become a CEO of the company. But
Mm,
have you gone through that journey to take risk yourself? Which means either the organization forces you to take risk, or you yourself take that risk. But you
mm,
need to go through that journey to be able to, really go to the next level that you really achieve and
correct.
want to really aim to go there. And that's where I think today's generation have to start thinking about taking risk. A lot of good organizations today, I would say, really promote that internal mobility, really
Yeah.
think about new roles that exist in the organization. But it's also about individuals to start believing in themselves and
Mm.
keep themselves ready to take those risks.
I agree. And with startups coming up all around, I think they have enough and more as opportunities to try and experiment themselves, right?
Yeah.
And the corporate world is ready to take them back if it doesn't go very well for them over a time, right?
Absolutely. I think I'll go back to my last organization. So there was somebody that we were hiring for a very, very senior role. And there
Mm,
were two extremely successful candidates that we found. And one was loved by everyone. The second was literally like a second in line that we were thinking whether to take it or not. And in the last and the final round of interview, we had asked one questions, we realized that the person who was really, doing extremely well in the interviews had never failed in their career before. Never
oh,
failed in the career before. And we thought to ourselves, we are into a very, very different journey of transformation. We want to
mm,
grow. We have grown extremely well, but we want to
mm,
grow from here, leaps and bounds. So
mm.
we would want somebody who has failed and learned and moved from there, because if somebody who failed for the first time, maybe for them it becomes overwhelming because they have never experienced that before. And then
Absolutely.
we end up did not taking the candidate who was really succeeding in the interviews. We actually took the second candidate only because of this reason, because we wanted somebody who had experienced failure, somebody who has learned from failures and is open to take risk, because failing is not a challenge for them.
Mm, very powerful one. Very, very powerful one. The other person must have been wondering why, but I think the relevance in which you brought in why the second person was chosen over the first makes tremendous sense. And today, so many innovation that people talk about, innovation labs happening, the ability to fail and come back is so fundamentally as an important. I mean, it's also being spoken as one of the key competencies for 21-22 as we move forward. The World Economic Forum currently talks about that also. Very important. Not a competency, but an attitude to have, right? Very, very lovely. I'm loving this conversation. This takes me to the next question, Megha. The book is of two parts. First is learning, the second one is leading, right? Part two is leading. As part of learning, he very clearly says that it's all about future. And today, I think we are in the world where everything seems to be very futuristic. But if you go back to Disney, when many some of us may not even born that time when Disney was established, I think from the very first effort of Disney flying in his helicopter and looking at a huge acres of property to create something of this kind, was itself so futuristic. So how do you interpret this as a young leader? It's all about future.
Yeah. See, for everything, for us to think about future is also about going back to the past. And that's my first take on it. Because the same example that HR has transformed so much in last 15 years from where I
Mm,
started to where it is today.
mm,
Now
mm,
you can now very well easily available is the Gartner new tool, which talks about the new quadrant of HR, where they have put the HR diversity officer as the most highly paid job in next 10 years. Now that's a huge transformation. Today, diversity person is like an individual contributor in most of the organizations.
yeah,
Most of the organization even doesn't have a exclusive diversity workforce.
true.
It typically is an integral part of HR. That's all. That's
Mm,
all, most of the organizations do. But now if you already know that, that's going to be the topmost jobs, are we fundamentally thinking about that future and building that skills and capability within the organization today?
mm, mm.
Now that's a example for us to start thinking. Now today you have so many tools and analytics and studies that is readily available for you, but are we doing and taking steps and action towards it?
Mm,
I think that's a big critical thing for us to reflect as HR leaders, as business leaders, to say we all want to become Microsofts and Googles of the world,
correct.
but are we doing enough to reach there? They haven't reached there just like that in a day or a magic thing, right?
Yeah,
It's a journey that every organization need to take.
true.
And I think that's a view that organizations need to start taking, which includes taking risk, which means including taking bold decisions. If
Mm,
it means and I'm giving you example of my own organization. Fiserv was a very good one in a payment industry, but they
mm,
still went ahead 2 years ago and bought First Data, which was an equal size organization. Now that
mm.
was a marrying two big organizations together. You generally go and buy smaller
Yeah.
organization, but you don't buy equal size organization. But
Mm,
they did. It was a very bold decision, the biggest in the payment industry have seen so far.
mm.
But that's how you think ahead of time that, hey, I'm going to invest so much, it's going to be a journey for me, but I'm able to see what I'm going to get into. And I think that's the futuristic vision that we all need to have.
Right.
The second point that I want to bring in is, today, if you look at Fortune 500 companies, now go back and see 2019 list.
Mm,
You would have Hilton as number one. You would see Airbnb. You would see Uber of the world. Now Boeing has one of the, big one in the Fortune 500 companies. Now, when you see 2020 or 2021 Fortune 500 list, where do you think they will be? Right? Now that's the answer. We never knew the future is going to be like this. We can never predict future, no
in
matter how many
365
tools.
days.
Yeah. So imagine, and by the way, the World Economic Forum has predicted that the next pandemic will be in India in 2030, which is like what? How many years? 9 years ahead of us, and it's going to be in Delhi for the air pollution. It's going to be another China, by the way.
My goodness.
But are we doing anything about it?
Mm.
And I think
That's,
that's the future vision that we all need to do. Future is uncertain. The only thing that's going to remain constant is change. And we need to take through that journey thing. Today Uber had fundamentally reinvented the way of transport. But
yeah.
we have gone back. If you just look at last year automobile sale because of COVID,
I,
Uber sale declined and the automobile sale had gone up by 130%. One
correct.
of my friend works there and he said, oh my God, the amount that we have sold in one quarter, we would have never imagined that we would be selling that much of. That
Absolutely.
means, somebody will grow, somebody will fail. It's only about who reinvents and bring to the ahead of the curve are the people who are going to be successful. The vision is never going to be 10 years. It has to be as small as, this is my business plan for 2 to 3 years. That's it. You
That's it.
cannot go
I
through a
agree.
5 year plan. You have to have a 2 to 3 year plan and see what you achieve in 2 3 years, and then fundamentally disrupt what you've done in 2 to 3 years, and
Mm.
change yourself to say, oh, next 2 to 3 years we're going to do fundamentally very different. Because you will never sustain of having a business unit which is only going to sustain basis one type of business model. It
Yeah,
has to be saying, today I'm into this, tomorrow I'm going to be that. Both of us generates revenue. If something happens to one business unit, at least there's somebody else who's sustaining you.
I agree. I agree. I think that's a very powerful point. Uh, Whatever you said sounds scary as one listens to you, right? But I think it's realistic. Uh, it's wise to be aware of this it's foolish to be scared of it, right? And I think it's very, very important that look at a 24-month window maximum and figure
Maximum.
out what we can do, because your point was very powerful, Megha, and it just made me think now. And I've read enough and more about the Uber story and others. Nobody thought that automobile sales going to go off the roof, though it started crazy, right? Uh, with the other policies that government brought in. People were struggling, and I've been part of a automobile industry. I was leading L&D for TVS Motors earlier, so I know the challenge the company goes through and the dealers go through. But I think this shift was unexpected, right? So I think you're very, very right in saying this. Future, thinking about future is one of the constant thought that leaders need to have as they are working on a regular basis, right? It's very, very important. I think very, very powerful one. That takes me to the next question, right? Which is very, very different to the point that we're talking about. Part of respect is what he talks about as something very, very strongly across the book. And he says that this is irreplaceable. We know this. How do you see this from an HR perspective? And what would be one strong advice to the young leaders who are wanting to make a career in HR like you?
See, I think in my mind, there is one thing that you can't change fundamentally, whosoever you're interacting. Now, whether
Mm,
you're interacting with the topmost person, or you're interacting with your peers, or you're interacting with your colleagues, or you're interacting to the last most associate.
mm,
I think respect takes you a long way, and it's a small saying to say, give respect because you believe that you want to get the same in back from the people. And if you believe that you're not going to respect to people, the same will come back to you. It's
yeah,
the irony of life, right? So if I don't give respect to my parents, how do you expect that they're going to give it back to me, right? So it's the same angle that we have to apply everything. It's like as basic of a cultural deep roots that we all had to say, हमारे parents बोलते थे respect करो बेटा, बड़ों की respect करो, right? And this is the same fundamental. Now obviously logically, as the young Indians think about, why should I respect when I fundamentally don't believe into you? But see,
mm,
the only thing that we can give each other is respect. I'm not saying do a sir culture, but I am
yeah,
only saying that respect the values, respect the ideas, respect the diversity that people bring in into their different thoughts and aspects. We may not like every idea. We
yeah,
may not think that every idea has a value, but that doesn't give us a right to disrespect somebody because they brought an idea on the table.
I
And I
agree.
think that is something that we all need to fundamentally have an ingrained value into us. Okay, we may not agree to each other every time. We may not believe that this is something that's going to file off, or sometimes we may have a heated argument, but that should never let into an aspect of disrespecting, never get into an aspect of using words that we should not use.
Yeah,
Because what goes on in a journey is that relationship that we build. And I'm saying,
absolutely.
don't even want, if you don't want to build relationship, don't build relationship, but respect each other, because
Yeah,
that's the basic fundamental value that you can give to each other. There's nothing else that we can give as a human beings, trust me.
that is
Expect just valuing what you've been, somebody who's bought into as your peers, as your colleague, or into as a team member. There is a reason that they're there, right?
yeah,
They might have not performed. Is it that performance because of that individual itself? Sometimes organization contributes to that, sometimes culture contributes to that,
mm,
sometimes competence also contributes that. But
yeah,
what are you doing to build that person up? I think don't completely take it off to the fact that it's a we work into a collaborative environment, and everybody adds into somebody's success, or
beautifully
not
said.
failure
Yes,
as well. And we all need to own that part. If you have a team member who's a bad performer, it is your failure as much as that individual is. And
yeah,
how many of you have given that opportunity for that person to shine? Have you just completely said, oh, ye to karta nahi hai, I'm not going to invest my time?
true, true.
Or you've given even enough opportunities to that person to say that hey, I'm going to do my best and see how
Yeah,
much you're able to take it on. How many times have we gone back when individual said, this place is not for you? It's not about the competence. Sometimes it's
mm,
about the organization
environment.
and the culture, the environment, and the role also.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
find the role which is
Oh
less
yes,
competent. find a role which is more operational, because maybe strategic thinking is not for you. See, we should never go back and say you don't have the competence, because potential is an untapped thing. People grow
Yeah,
leaps and bounds on the potential. You can never
correct.
tap somebody's potential. So always say maybe this organization is not for you, because maybe we are too fast, maybe we're too ever changing. Maybe
Hmm.
you as an individual personality needs something which is more stable, because you will thrive in that environment. And why
Absolutely.
don't let me help you find something like that?
Beautiful,
And I think
beautiful.
that's the respect that we all need to bring in as a human.
I agree. I mean, that's very powerful, Meg. I mean, personal claps for that point because uh, it made me think from a very emotional angle that there are organizations who completely respect the strength of the individual and try to shift the individual to an environment that can help him or her thrive and really blossom out. And there are organizations who think, we need this competency in you. You don't have it. You're a misfit. Exit. I've had interactions with HR people who have been absolutely cut. नहीं deliver हो रहा है, move him, move her out. And there have been HR who have said, okay, he or she is not delivering not because capability, but because the system is not conducive. Let me figure out an alternative. But how many HR people have actually conducted exit interviews and taken the personal effort to find a job for the candidate? I've known so many of them. I mean, such people now flash around in my head as you spoke about this powerful point, Megha. Thank you for bringing this. I think it's a very powerful point for young leaders to understand that end of the day, you are there to serve somebody. You're not there to deliver something. The moment you make this paradigm shift in your head, I think respect will automatically start coming in. Very, very powerful point. Thank you for bringing this so emphatically. I think it's very important for young leaders. Completely appreciate this. Thank you. Yeah. That takes me to the last question. With all this experience that you have garnered over time, Megha, and many young leaders who listen to you would be inspired to go on the fast track that you have been and reach senior positions like you have. And I'm not exaggerating this at all. It's a compliment to you from my side for doing a fantastic job there. Two razor sharp advices that you would love to give them that can help them to stay on the track and move up.
Yeah. So I think the first one I would say is there is no price to integrity. And, I do understand that today's generation is bought into the fact that they have the abundance of everything, right? Our parents were never bought into an abundance, so their feeling was always that okay, we have to grow. Then is what our generation who had some things, but obviously to make it more lucrative for us, we built some things, we had some things, and we moved on to that.
So,
And now is the generation who's very safe. They don't have a safety security issues. They may not even have the second layer of issues around okay, the basic needs, the social aspect. They already get it through LinkedIn, they find it Facebook, Twitter, and multiple aspects. So they are directly on the verge of finding a self actualization.
absolutely.
And sometimes in that journey, because the feeling of abundance, the feeling of getting it so easy gets also into the fact of oh, let me cut some corners, or let me think about the easy way of finding things.
Hmm.
I think my biggest advice to people are maybe sometimes doing the right thing maybe a longer way, maybe it takes a longish period of time as well,
Hmm.
but there is no price to integrity that you pay today.
True.
Sometimes you don't realize that even a small corner that you cut today may not bear you the price, because but that becomes a habit of you as an individual. And
Lovely.
that is when you don't realize one day you bear a big price that you never imagined, and completely lost your credibility, completely lost what you've gained till now, and of
Hmm.
course impacting your financial and your socio-economic
True.
so-called image that you've created yourself. So I
True.
would say start small. Don't run for everything in one day, and never leave your basic human sense of non being non-political, having that integrity for everything that you do. It goes a long way, because you may not be the richest person on the world or the most famous person on the world, but what you would be always known in the industry for, hey, this I want to work with this person because I know this person is straight, I know that this person is going to be play fair, this person is going to be the most empathetic person that I want to work with. And sometimes those are more finer aspect that you've been known for. And think about if you really want to be known for the richest person or the famous person, and still be called as oh, this person is a I don't want to work with this person, or you would want to known as a great human being, a great person to work with, an extremely fair person. Who do you want to be? And you always think about what you're doing.
Beautiful. I think very, very, very powerful, Megha. Thank you for bringing this, and I'm happy to hear this because Uh, Without any exaggeration, I want to definitely say this and close this conversation is we are talking about a wired world, we're talking about technology, but beyond all this, end of the day, we are the same Homo sapiens that was created generations back. We are still the same human being. I mean, I would love to sit in front of you physically, shake hand with you, and have this conversation, but I am bound to do it through technology because there's no choice now, right? That's what we are. I had a very powerful statement which I read many years back. It said that even in the wired world that we are in, what matters is that one handshake. I think it's a powerful statement, which is what you're saying that despite all the technology that these boys and girls have on their hand, everything that's easy accessible, the click I can buy things on Amazon. But I think it's all about that human basic value that keeps you there. I think it's a very powerful point that you brought in. I think it's eternal, right? But हमारे grandfather, हमारे father, हमारे बच्चे, that's what we give to our kids also, right? यही
Absolutely.
लेके जाओ.
ये लेके जाओ और देखो आप क्या दे सकते हो मनी इज समथिंग दैट टुडे देयर इज नो डर्थ ऑफ स्पेंडिंग मनी नो
True.
मैच यूर टुडे यूर अ बिलियनर मिलियनर but there is no end of where you can spend money as well. And I
Absolutely.
always, my mom says this, it takes generations to build an empire, and it takes only one generation to destroy the entire empire as well. It just takes one generation to do that. And I think we always need to understand that philosophy of saying what do you want to be known for. And I always say to my team members, don't think about, oh, my business leader will not like it. You're not being hired to be a likable HR person. You've been hired to do the right thing for the organization. So
Perfect.
don't think about pleasing your business leader or pleasing of what they like to hear, but think about saying the things that's very very right, because you've been hired to do the right for the organization, and that's what you have to do. So I don't care if a business leader comes to me and say that, oh my god, I don't like your HR business partner because of XYZ. It's like, fair enough. And I would obviously want to hear the other side of the story. And if it is because the person is pushing you always, maybe that person is doing the right thing, because that's the right thing for you to be also knowing for that. So it's not about pleasing, it's about doing the right thing, which means sometimes excellence and fairness doesn't need to be mutually exclusive. You can always bring excellence in what you do, but yet be fairly show that fairness of what you and how you want to do the job. So they don't need to be mutually exclusive to each other, but rather both side of the
Complement each
coins
other
have
and
to
work
be
together.
absolutely.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Megha. That was a lovely conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed this last 45, 50 minutes of this time with you. I hope you had a good time.
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, I shared this idea with one of my leader inside. He loved it so much. He said, okay, why don't you do the same session with me and my team? And I said, okay, if I'm going to do it, it can't be just one intervention. That means the next session goes back to you on a book learning, and we can run it like for 12 months, which means one by you, then one by somebody else in the leadership team. So that becomes something for our associates. So I would like to thank you, Rajiv, for bringing this to me, because now we're running this intervention next month within the organization for a set of managers. And of course, I'll start the session, the first one, and then followed up by multiple other leaders who is going to do it for all our
Beautiful.
associates.
Beautiful. I'm very happy to hear this. And always talk to me in case you want any support from my side on this, because I also established reading clubs and book libraries in organizations, helping learning as a culture to be built in. So I can always help you and support you with that.
Excellent.
Definitely.
So let's
Yeah.
connect offline again.
Super. All right. Lovely talking to you. Look forward to seeing you sometime when I start flying to your city. Till then, you take care and
Absolutely.
enjoy the time. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye, Rajiv.